I want to welcome everybody today to the public session of the National Big Data Hub Charrette. So for all the people who are just joining the program here, NSF, the National Science Foundation, in particular the Computer Science Directorate, where I sit, has initiated a new program called the Big Data Regional Hubs. This national meeting is the culmination of several regional workshops and charrettes where we brought together stakeholders in industry, academia, nonprofits, foundations, state and local governments, all stakeholders in big data to think about what we can do to accelerate the process of taking technology and really deriving broad impact on society with them. We have recently made awards to several institutions to coordinate the process of pulling together these big data hubs. And today I'm going to talk a little bit about the hubs themselves, a new call, and also have some of the other hubs present and talk about their priorities and their next steps. So this is the program. I'll kick off just a few minutes with a little bit of information about the program and the call. You'll find a lot more information online at the NSF website, and we'll be hosting another longer webinar, 2-hour webinar, in about 3 weeks. We will have a Q&A session at the end of everybody's presentation, so please queue up via the telephone or via the online WebEx, and we'll answer your questions. So the Big Data Hubs portfolio, it's part of an interesting portfolio of activities for big data within the NSF. We sit in a very particular space, and the Big Data Hubs really focus on partnerships. It's a little different than our standard programs like Big Data, which is our R&D program, or DIBS, which is our infrastructure HOPE program. Big Data Hubs is really about coalescing stakeholders from different sectors, different disciplines around grand challenges in big data. The HUMS network, the way we envision it, is a hub and spoke model. So there are 4 hubs that are based in geographic regions, and each hub is responsible for a series of, quote, spokes, which are mission-driven, targeted collaborations within certain areas, certain topical areas, or certain focus points. We hope that within a spoke, multiple partnerships between different organizations might kick off. Specific projects might kick off from within a spoke. So far, this is the timeline of activities that have occurred. We launched the Big Data Hubs program in March of 2015, and in September of 2015 we made the awards after receiving proposals, after holding some charrettes. We also launched the next phase, the Big Data Spoke solicitation, just this November, just before this recent charrette. This is the geographic breakdown of the Big Data Hubs. We have a Northeast hub, a South hub, a Midwest hub, and a West hub. Definitely a lot of participants throughout the state, great representation at this very first phase. However, the hubs are designed to be something that will bloom and grow and gather more participants in their, in the near and future of the hubs. We really do think of this as a long-term investment by NSF, a long-term and dynamic investment by NSF that we like to see grow and be able to facilitate the interests of their region and be able to really get to the and see what the stakeholders in their regions really want and be able to grow to accommodate that. So really I want to spend the rest of my time very quickly going over the Big Data Spoke solicitation. Now you will be able to see all of this text online so you can look at it. And we will be hosting that webinar most likely November 30th. That time I will give a very detailed explanation of the spoke solicitation and be able to answer a lot of questions. The key thing to note about the Big Data Spoke solicitation is that these proposals are meant to be designed in partnership with the hubs. Therefore, all spoke proposals must have a letter of support from the hub and really must engage the hub in their design and get the hub support in it. And today, the hubs will discuss their initial steps in managing the spoke design process for their region. So the solicitation is carved into sort of three major themes. I don't want to think them of, they're really three dimensions of the way that you can think of big data innovation challenges in America. One is, how do we focus on grand challenges, issues like healthcare, issues like energy? How do we focus big data innovation in solving some of those grand challenges? How do we start sharing more data assets? And how do we create tools that improve automation for big data and break down some of those roadblocks, some of those bottlenecks in really implementing big data technology? These spokes will be mission-driven. Unlike the hubs, which themselves are broad consortia, really designed to be inclusive, to vet and to ideate, and to think of potential projects and brainstorm projects, these spokes really should be designed with an end goal in mind within their area. These should be aspirational goals within a target application area. So all spokes really should have a clearly defined mission. At the end of the day, when we gather all these people in a room, what do we want to move towards? There are a few areas of emphasis that NSF have laid out. The hubs themselves have particular areas of emphasis based on their regionality and the challenges in the region, the opportunities in the region. NSF has some major programs that, in addition, we wanted to draw your attention to that these are NSF priorities. So if you in particular have an idea for big data spoke within these areas using big data technology, we consider this an area of emphasis. So there may be additional funds for topics in these, for proposals in these areas. Very quickly, my last few seconds, I wanted to call out some of the key solicitation details. A spoke project will be funded to a maximum of $1 million total over 3 years. And there are also planning grants that are, for the next year, $100,000 for up to 1 year. With a total anticipated funding amount of about $10 million. This would be enough for 9 spokes and 10 planning grants if the proposals that we receive give us 9 spokes and 10 planning grants. Letters of intent deadline is due January 12th. Full proposal deadline is due February 25th, all at 5 p.m. proposers local time. In terms of eligibility, universities and colleges, nonprofits, non-academic institutions, state and local governments are all able to apply. NSF does welcome collaborative proposals that include for-profit and FFRDCs. However, these organizations can only participate as subawardees. Any individual may serve as the PI or co-PI at most one submission. There is no limit on senior personnel. And without further ado, here's my contact information, and I want to pass it off back to Costa.
Thank you, Fan. Let's hear it. Okay, up next, Kathy McEwen from the Northeast Hub.
Hi, I'm the PI for the Northeast Hub. I'm also director of Columbia's Data Science Institute and a professor of computer science at Columbia. Oops. The unique region's characteristics for the Northeast region derive from the region itself. As you can see, we're the smallest geographically, but we have the same population. So we are the most economically developed, the most densely populated, and the most culturally diverse. We have 3 of the top 10 metropolitan cities in the country. We have 4 of the top 10 hospitals. We have the financial center of the nation, and we have very dense concentration of academic institutions. Our vision is to provide opportunities for data scientists across organizations, sectors, and related fields to come together for collaboration. Our focus is on deriving knowledge from data and turning that into action to solve problems. We have a 3-part steering committee. It consists of the executive committee, the advisory subgroup, and the task lead subgroup, which are the heads of our spokes and connectors. Our executive committee is a small group which will work closely with me on vision and planning, and it includes Carla Broadley from Northeastern, Vasant Hanavar from Penn State, Andrew McCallum from UMass Amherst, and Howard Walkler from CMU. Our steering advisory subgroup consists of a mixture of academic institutions, industry, nonprofits, and government. From academia, we have representatives from Rutgers, Yale, Brown, SUNY Albany, Princeton, and Dartmouth. We have representation from foundations, from New York City, from 3 companies, and from 2 nonprofits. Shown here is the organization. Our spokes focus on grand challenges for the region, what we see as places where we have the biggest challenges and the most opportunities, and these would be areas where we would expect to get in spoke proposals, in addition to the areas which Fen noted. Down the center of this gyroscope, we also have what we call connectors, and these are themes that run across all of the applications in the spokes. We'll be bringing together experts from both the public and the private sector to develop data-driven approaches to problems in cities and regions, energy, health, finance, data-driven education, and scientific discovery. Our cities and regions spoke is led by Konstantin Kontakakis from NYU and Sanjay Seth from the Regional Plan Association. Their goal is to develop a better understanding of the science of cities, and they'll be looking at how they can use big data for operational efficiencies and to improve the quality of life. They'll be developing a regional perspective so that they can encourage cooperation. Our energy spoke is led by Abani Patra from SUNY Buffalo, and this spoke will be bringing together distinct communities and approaches to energy. For example, people who work on the generation and storage of energy, the distribution of energy, or the consumption of energy. Our health spoke is led by George Ripsack of Columbia University. And in this spoke, they're focusing on acquisition of data, and they're especially looking at acquisition of alternative types of data. For example, data coming from social media, the quantified self, healthcare workflow, or mobile health. And they'll be looking at making available tools for advanced analytics that can be used for patient records or precision medicine. Our Discovery Science spoke is led by Chris Hill of MIT, and this will include different kinds of science, for example, neuroengineering, materials design, the environment, and sustainability. And their focus will be on developing data infrastructures and data inference tools. Our finance spoke is led by Michael Kearns of the University of Pennsylvania. And currently, in today's market, we see that we have automation of every aspect of electronic data. And this leads to an abundance of data about finance. Often the correlations between the different types of data are not well understood, and thus the market is subject to poorly understood crises and collapses. And so this spoke will explore collaboration that can bring data science tools to better understand the modern financial markets. We also have 4 connectors. The data sharing connector is led by Sam Madden of MIT. There we're focusing on how we can incentivize people to share data from their different organizations and what kind of services we can provide to help in that data sharing. Ethics and Policy is led by Jennifer Stromer-Galley of Syracuse. Given the large amount of data that companies and other organizations now collect, there are a lot of questions surrounding the ethics of how that data is used. Our Privacy and Security Connector is led by Adam Smith of Penn State. And again, given the large amount of data connected, we need to be concerned with privacy and security issues. Our Data Science Education Connector is led by Jim Hendler of RPI, and there we're looking at the academic programs and the curricula that would be appropriate for education at all levels across the region. We have 3 upcoming workshops. Our inaugural workshop will be held on December 16th at Columbia University. All are welcome. Space is limited, so please register now. We have 2 other workshops, a cryptography for big data, which is leading up to our inaugural workshop, so 2 days before it, and a workshop on data science, learning, and applications to biomedical and health sciences, which will be held in the beginning of January at the New York Academy of Science. So we did Fen did discuss the spokes solicitation, and here we did develop a timeline for the Northeast. People do need to submit to us a draft of their letter of intent so that we can determine whether we would provide a letter of collaboration. So people should submit their letter of intent by December 6th. On December 16th, the steering committee will meet and determine for which of those proposals we will provide letters of collaboration. We discussed here at the workshop that we thought there should be a maximum of 25 submissions from each hub. And then once decided, we will provide the actual letters of collaboration by January 6th. We also discussed here among the different hubs, we talked about what guidelines proposers should use for success. These will be further discussed among the hubs themselves, the steering committees, but some of the ones that we discuss include things such as clear metrics and a timeline for success. Ideally, the proposal would be multi-state, multi-institution, and would include a mix of people from industry, academics, government, and nonprofits. It would be highly collaborative and would have high impact in areas of challenge. It would include a workforce component, and it would articulate expected collaboration with the hub. Our hub discussed some possible directions given the amount of money available in the solicitation. Of course, people can decide on their own directions as well. We thought it would be exciting to see some proposals around data sharing and collaboration across the regions. For example, we thought it would be great if there's a central access point to data sets that come from, for example, different cities or different institutions, different towns, and in many different areas this would be possible. This would enable learning across populations and across different scales, and it would also bring together the region to develop policies and practices. We also thought it would be interesting to have workshops in an interdisciplinary area, bringing together people who don't normally meet. And this could be followed by activities which lead to concrete results, for example, hackathons or pilot projects. So I'll close by giving you the URL for our hub. If you go there, you can check the workshop tag in order to register for our inaugural workshop. Shown here is also the email if you would like to join the hub, and this is also the email that you should use for your letters of intent. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Up next, we'll have Srinivas Aluru and Stan Aholt from the South Hub.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Srinivas Aluru. I'm from the Georgia Institute of Technology. I manage the South Big Data Hub jointly with my counterparts at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. I also co-direct the Georgia Tech's own strategic initiative in data engineering and science that we call IDEAS. In terms of the hub, the hub proposal on behalf of the South region was coordinated by Ashok Krishnamurthy at UNC and myself. And more recently, we worked together for 6 months in trying to coordinate the region and get this effort off the ground. More recently, Ashok has been saddled with significant additional responsibilities, and therefore, Dr. Stanley Ahalt, who is the director of the Renaissance Computing Institute at the University of North Carolina, will be stepping into that role to help us manage the South Big Data Hub. Just to give you a snapshot of what we had at the time of the proposal submission, we had 29 investigators on our proposal, and we forged partnerships with 59 academic, nonprofit, and government organizations. We also had 25 partners at that time. And here is a map that gives you a snapshot of many of these partners and where they lie geographically. Our region stretches, the south of the Mason-Dixon line, Delaware, Maryland, Virginia, and so on, all the way down to Florida, and then west all the way up to and including Oklahoma and Texas. And we have partners in all of these states. And we are, of course, open to expanding our partnership. So, please feel free to get in touch if you are not part of it already and you'd like to do more. I want to briefly go over the spoke areas that we have identified. The region has come together and identified 7 priority areas. 5 of them we call spokes. We adopted the Midwest terminology and called 2 of them rings because they have impact in many different areas. And rather than talk about the scientific mission in each of these areas, I want to briefly explain why our region chose these areas. So one of our priority areas is in precision medicine, healthcare analytics, and health disparities. And the reason we chose this is because our region has a substantial minority population of African Americans, Hispanics, and Native Americans. There are significant health disparities throughout the South. And the stroke belt consists of 16 southern states where the incidence of heart attack is higher. So we want to focus our spoke on trying to understand the health disparities and the minority genomics and things like that. Coastal hazards is another idea identified by our region. We have a very long coastline stretching to thousands of miles that includes the Atlantic and the Gulf Coast. And we do see a disproportionate share of natural hazards, particularly tropical cyclones and hurricanes and so on. So we wanted to address this regional challenge through the Big Data Hub. Another area that we want to focus on is the area that we call industrial big data. This is essentially data from network sensors and machines, cyber physical systems, and machines feeding us information about their own health status and things like that. And the reason we are interested in is that the South is a hub for power generation and utility companies. We also have a significant oil and gas production assets in Oklahoma, Texas, and Louisiana and other regions. Companies like General Electric monitor worldwide energy generation and have huge data analytics centers in the South. The Southeast in particular is a major manufacturing hub. The original equipment manufacturers in the U.S. aerospace and automotive industries have a very substantial footprint in the South. So we wanted to focus on materials and manufacturing as well. And at present, there is a huge disparity between the material science knowledge and the application of it to manufacturing practice. So we wanted to bridge that gap. And our partners also include manufacturing extension partnerships that are present in many of the southern states. Habitat planning is one of our spokes, and we use this term broadly to include things like smart cities, urban infrastructure, sustainability, resilience, transportation research, and so on. But our region also has interests in wildlife habitat planning and conservation and efforts like that. Again, we want to focus here on some of the issues that are really important to the South region. For example, the U.S. Department of Agriculture has this concept of food deserts. These are areas where there is a relative lack of access to fresh food and other ingredients needed for healthy human living. And if you look at the U.S. map and where these food deserts are located, more of them, a disproportionately large number of them, are in the South region. So we want to understand why and what we can do to address that. We also want to work on urban-rural codependent systems and how modeling the urban and rural systems together can help us improve economic resiliency. And the South is also home to strong institutions in transportation, and there is significant expertise in modeling disease epidemics and things like that. So we wanted to focus in these areas in the smart cities call for the spokes. And coming back to the rings, these are essentially spokes, but they are cross-cutting that in the sense that they would impact many domains. So one of them is we wanted to focus, like many other regions, on the big data sharing and infrastructure. So how do we host national data repositories? How do we transfer big data among partner institutions? And what are the data sharing mechanisms, protocols, and things like that? Another spoke is big data economic modeling, security, and privacy. And we also have people who are interested in studying economic impact of incorporating big data in decision-making in industries so that we can provide guidance appropriately. At this stage, I would like to turn over to my colleague Stanley Halt to explain to you about the South Hub governance structure and our upcoming plan for the spokes.
Actually, we're working through a couple of technical difficulties, but they should have the presentation back up in a second. So.
I will note that I was not responsible for
Well,
the technical difficulty.
Well, how about, ready to go? All right.
Thank you, Srinivas. I appreciate it. The governance structure of the South BD Hub is still being worked out, but we know what form it's going to take, and we have a steering council, an executive committee, and then a series of other committees. We're going to have approximately 18 people on the steering committee because this is actually going to be a group that we use pretty extensively to vet, for example, the spoke proposals. The executive committee will be more hands-on and involved in the day-to-day operations. And then we have, there will be ultimately 2 executive directors, which we're very fortunate to be able to have in the South because that amplifies our ability to do a lot of outreach and engagement. And we also have a series of committee structures that we've set up, at least tentatively, and they will be persons staffed, if you will, with people from all across the South, and usually 2 to 5 people in each of those committees. We also have some ideas on the core hub activities that we'd like to provide out to the spokes. Those include things like an active and useful website. We do think that this is a real opportunity to use data as what I might call a warming fire, a thing that brings people together to work on problems across institutional boundaries that might not have otherwise been so easy to make that reach. So a collaboration space is key to our planning, communication infrastructure so that we can communicate across the region effectively, and then facilitation and outreach. That's going to be a large part of how the hubs and spokes interact. We also will be requesting a letter of intent, we're calling it a preliminary one, that ultimately will be to support the collaboration of the spokes. And I've posted up here that you can send email to info@southbdhub.org to make sure that you're on our mailing list, and we'll also be posting this on our website. We'll have information similar to what Kathy put up on her slide about kind of the basic criteria that we want to look for, the elements of success, and we're hoping that we'll get a lot of effective draw from this. We're also going to have a spoke organization meeting and a general hub meeting on the 7th and 8th at Georgia Tech in Atlanta. And again, during that meeting, we're going to have Fen Zhao has graciously agreed to come and attend the meeting, so we can explain to the attendees there that are interested in spokes, what kind of the rules of the road are from NSF's perspective. And then we're going to have some team formation activities, and we're working hard on the agenda to get that structured in such a way that we can use people's time effectively. Again, mailing list or website. We would like to try to get our mailing list as inclusive as possible, as quickly as possible. And again, this is the team that's working right now together. I am transitioning into Ashok's role because he's got some new starts in his, particularly out of the School of Medicine, so he's very busy, and I'm very pleased for him, and I'm eager to be deeply engaged with this community for the long haul. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Up next, we have Ed Seidel for the Midwest Hub.
Well, thank you. And I'd like to first introduce our team. Come on up, Josh. So I'm merely representing this large collaboration across the entire Midwest region, and I'd like each of you to just say who you are and your institution.
Beth Plaley, I'm a professor in this. Beth Plaley, I'm a professor in the School of Informatics and Computing at Indiana University.
Brian Athey, I'm a professor and chair of the Department of Computational Medicine and Bioinformatics and co-director of the Michigan Institute for Data Science.
And I'm Sarah Nusser. I'm a professor of statistics and vice president for research at Iowa State University.
My name is Josh Riddy. I'm the University of North Dakota's Vice Provost, Chief Strategy Officer, and Chief Information Officer.
Thanks. All right, thank you. So we across the Midwest are a very friendly region, and we are working together, I think, very well. And we have built this team, and I'll tell you about where we are right now. So the name of our proposal was Midwest oriented, called Seed Corn, and it's the proposal that is now funding this hub that NSF is funding. But we really think of that figuratively and literally, that it is seeding the development of a number of partnerships across the Midwest and beyond that will address problems that are really important to our region. We've pulled together members from all of these different sectors: academia, government, industry, nonprofits. We have over 100 partners already, including universities of all types, from small colleges to major R1 universities, public and private universities as well, medical centers. And I think people are quite excited to be part of this. We also cover the industry, also nonprofit and non-governmental organizational sectors, and we have states and cities and communities of different types who are already joined. And of course, I'll keep emphasizing that we are open for many others to join. So these are the groups that we were able to organize as we built up towards writing the proposal, but now we're actually open for business, and we look forward to working with a broader set of groups. We have also a series of spokes and rings. There are working groups already set up. The idea of spokes are that they will be supported by the hub. The hub will create the administrative and collaborative structures that allow people to actually work. But beyond that, we're really hoping to be a very strongly grassroots-driven organization where different groups come together and are able to leverage the activities and the support structures we're putting in place in the hub. We have leaders and working groups, which I won't go into in depth here, but you can look at our website and find the names of people who are leading these groups, as well as white papers that we are putting up that were developed as part of the proposal generation. They will be appearing over the next few days as we get them ready for public viewing. So I'll just list the basic areas. We have network science, which includes in the solicitation that's just been announced from the NSF that Fen talked about, the areas of data-intensive research in social, behavioral, and economic sciences. We also have a very active group in urban science, which would include, of course, smart and connected cities, and thinking about the issues of urban environments. And in fact, we have within our domain cities like Detroit and Chicago that have very different characteristics, and they're both actually members of our hub activities already. We have another one on business analytics. How do companies actually harness the power of big data and make decisions that are important for their business and their bottom line, or the products they may need to be developing, and so on. Digital agriculture. Agriculture is, of course, critical to the Midwest region, and the Midwest region, because of agriculture and other things, is critical to the rest of the world food supply. And so it's very, very important for us. We have a lot of universities and companies working together already, and state organizations, and so we are thinking how we can pull together data from instrumented fields and data from plant genomics and so on, how that all comes together to address problems of farming and food supply and so on. We have also in the Midwest, particularly in some of our regions, Michigan in particular, a lot of transportation expertise with major automotive companies and others, and so we have a spoke in this area. Advanced manufacturing, as we also heard from the other regions, very important for us. In fact, there have been major investments in the city of Chicago by the federal government. One of the DMDII projects is actually in Chicago on materials and manufacturing, and it is already a nonprofit organization with many, many universities and companies involved, so that in fact is a member of our collaboration as well. Another one is food, energy, water, and so we have each of these has a flavor of how the Midwest region really needs to address particular problems. And food, energy, water, of course, we generate a lot of food. We have the Great Lakes area, and so these are problems that are very important specifically for the Midwest, and so we'll have our own flavor of that. Healthcare and biomedical research, including neuroscience, and then others as proposed. So these are the ones that we came up with as the proposal was being developed and working groups formed. We're very open, in fact, eager to hear from you out in the communities what other areas you would like to propose, and so we will love to talk to you about that. And then the rings. The rings are the cross-cutting developments. They're basically spokes, but they're ones that we think touch all of the spokes. Data science, including data-intensive research in social, behavioral, economic sciences, replicability and reproducibility in data science. Also education. One of our primary goals will be to be developing a young and new generation of data scientists, of which we know there will be a great dearth of, very, very few people compared to the demand, and so we hope to be training people with real data in these environments, and also data tools and services that would support all of these. The goals and the outcomes, I'll briefly just go through these, but the things that we specifically want to make sure we do as a hub is to help support the development of partnerships between these different agencies, different organizations, different types of organizations, and I think NSF was very thoughtful in creating a structure that was not NSF-centric at all. They're trying to create a structure that is really all of government and all research areas, and also private and public partnerships, and so on. So we anticipate receiving funding over time from many different organizations, both agencies and governments and cities and NGOs and so on. We will focus on technology transfer where it makes sense, and so I think we really want the industry sector to be working with us and to find that there's real value there. We will also think about how we do train all of these young data scientists, and how best practices in education of data might be brought into the private sector as well as the government sector. We also are very interested in supporting pilot projects, so we don't necessarily have the capacity to provide long-term data services at this time, but we want to get things started. So we've thought a lot about how collaborations might come together and particularly need to, say, share data across different sectors, let's say food, energy, and water, from plant genomics to water supplies and so on. So that would require new approaches towards data sharing, perhaps new algorithms and policies around how those data can be developed and shared. So we will work with different organizations to help test pilots with real data. For example, how we might help farmers balance productivity and sustainability with detailed data on crop growth, soil conditions, and environment. One of the themes is very important for the Midwest. In order to assist that, we have partnerships with organizations, the Research Data Alliance, the National Data Service, and other organizations. And in fact, we have an agreement among the HPC centers across, in fact, all the regions, and NSF supports HPC centers in all the regions, that we will help support pilots given our capacity to do so. So that's something we just want to step forward and try to make happen. And then, really importantly, how do you actually sustain any of these activities for more than the length of a particular grant? And that's very, very important, and we will put a lot of focus on how you do that, how the partnerships are sustained, how the data services that might be needed, how they would be sustained, and this would be for the long term. So we'll look at different business models with funding from different sources, including many stakeholders, from states to universities to funding agencies and so on. We're just getting started. In fact, all of these look like there's a lot of activity, which there has been, but they're still rather embryonic. So we want to keep emphasizing that we're just really bootstrapping our way to function. We're looking for an executive director. Be quite happy to have people write to me and say, I would love to be that person. You're invited to join the hub, and you can find on the website a place where you can sign up and find your put your email address in so that you can receive information from us going forward. So I want one last slide, and I want to thank the NSF for really pushing us to move very fast. And I think this is unusual that NSF pushes faster than the communities are quite ready to go, but we are now motivated, so we're going to hold on and get going here. And so we have a timeline that we've just created for the Midwest Hub. This is similar to the others. And so tomorrow, if you're on our steering committee, and we have a steering committee of over a dozen people across the Midwest, you will be getting an email from us to say, get ready. If you are in the community and you have signed up and you have your email address registered with us, you will be getting a mail on November the 9th across the entire collaboration with more details on what we would expect in terms of spoke proposals. And if you're not already involved, please sign up if you want to receive this. On December the 9th, then, about a month later, we're anticipating we will have a deadline for submission of initial hub letters of intent. These would be drafts with a supplementary document that will ask you to explain in more detail why this particular spoke would be suitable or particularly leveraging assets in our region, how the hub would be able to support it, and so on. Along the lines of the criteria that Kathy outlined, we'll have our own version of that as well. And you can also see our website for details. Then we will very quickly get together and review these, and we will decide which ones we are able to support in terms of endorsing for a full letter of intent to be submitted to NSF a month later, as well as which ones we think would be good for planning grants, and then also which ones we think actually would be ready for workshops. And we will have plenty of workshops going forward to develop ideas that might be a little bit early on, but we think would be very helpful going forward. And then on December 16th, we will have a hub governance team that will meet in Chicago to plan. And in fact, that's also when we will mail out the sort of analysis that we've done for the preliminary spoke proposals. And in mid-January, date to be determined, location still to be determined, we will have our first all-hands meeting to really get everything rolling. So just to summarize then, I would just say the first point for us is that we're trying to create the collaborations across many organizations that will address grand challenges. So we're trying to pull together the intellectual capital and the right organizational structures that will allow them to address problems that are important to our region and beyond. We are very interested in having additional people join our steering activities and our working groups and so on, so there's plenty of time for that. And we're just now starting to prepare for the first spoke solicitation, so please join us. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Up next, we have Meredith Lee for the West Hub.
Good morning from the West Big Data Innovation Hub. My name is Meredith Lee. I'm the Executive Director, and on behalf of our great leadership team that you see here behind me, thank you for your interest and enthusiasm. Today we'll be sharing an introduction to our Hub's strategic vision. We'll be noting some upcoming opportunities to get involved, and we'll be highlighting a few ways to communicate. With our leadership team as we all embark upon this adventure. And I stayed up really late doing these slides, and so, okay, we've reached steady state. So we're excited to launch our hub this week and look forward to building multi-sector and multi-state partnerships to address societal challenges with big data innovation. We've seen great interest so far in linking our region's efforts in 5 broad thematic areas. The first is big data technology. This is a rapidly growing area that spans storage to computation, different ways to interact with data, new advances in data management and scalability, and in particular, the West region is a real center of gravity for cloud computing, and we're eager to explore ways to leverage this moving forward. Another area of interest for our hub is metro data science. The West region is home to particularly vital metro areas, providing unique challenges and opportunities in data science related to transportation, to housing, economic development, distributed sensors or the Internet of Things, and other topics. A third emerging focus area is that of precision medicine. This theme is going to be working towards data-informed decisions that are predictive, preventative, personalized, and participatory. Fourthly, we have our natural resources and hazards area. The West region in particular has very unique natural resources and many natural hazards. Case in point, the super mega uber drought in California, where I'm from. The data projects in this theme can span water resource management to precision agriculture to emergency response and disaster preparedness. Finally, last but not least, the data-enabled scientific discovery and learning theme stretches across several subject matter areas. The Gordon and Betty Moore Foundation and the Alfred P. Sloan Foundation have provided $37.8 million recently to the University of Washington, UC Berkeley, and the New York University for a 5-year project to create environments on their campuses that accelerate the adoption of data-intensive discovery. The Big Data Regional Hub provides the opportunity to scale insights and lessons learned from this experiment throughout our entire Western region. The West region, shown here in blue, has often been associated with pioneers, with explorers, and experimentalists who push the boundaries of what is possible. We're home to some of the world's largest and some of the world's smallest and some of the world's newest tech companies, and very much we can do it entrepreneurial spirit. While our stakeholders are, as you can imagine, spread out across the largest geographical footprint of any of the regional hubs, we are eager to build and strengthen connections in our community with industry partners, government at all levels, academia, nonprofits, volunteers, and any big data enthusiasts. And we'll take ones that are not in our region too as collaborators. For example, we're super excited about collaborations with groups like the Southern California Tribal Digital Village. This is an organization that serves 19 federally recognized Native American Indian reservations. And our region is also home to, and as another example, our region is also home to many startups, nonprofits, and nonprofit startups, like the team at NLearn, which has the potential to revolutionize elementary school math education. We see the hub as this amazing opportunity to educate each other and build awareness of the great work that is happening across our region. This includes opportunities for training, for civic hackathons where we encourage learning by doing, and workforce development. The hub is also an opportunity to connect stakeholders and potential partners for more effective resource sharing and collaboration. A great example of educating and connecting stakeholder groups simultaneously comes from a student who I believe is following us on Twitter this morning at the University of Alaska Fairbanks. In a blog post that he wrote just last week, Sean shared his story of his introduction to hands-on data science training. He went to the University of Washington, where there was a partnership with the Software Carpentry Foundation. The Software Carpentry Foundation, for those of you who haven't heard of it yet, is this amazing group that has been teaching researchers in science, engineering, medicine, and related disciplines the computing skills that they need to get more done in less time, and according to their website, with less pain. I'm all about less pain, so. Yay, software carpentry. Incidentally, Sean is also a student fellow at the Federation for Earth Science Information Partnerships, or ESIP, a NASA and NOAA-supported community of over 1,000 data and information technology practitioners. And they're aiming to catalyze connections across traditional, institutional, and domain boundaries to solve Earth science data stewardship and interoperability issues. So it's been about 6 months since Sean attended his first data carpentry training session at UW, and he is now actually completing instructor training to teach with software carpentry and data carpentry. Much like Sean has connected the University of Alaska with the University of Washington, two nonprofits, NASA and NOAA, all in one swoop, the hubs are looking to facilitate collaborations that accelerate the transfer of knowledge and the transfer of tools to the field. We'll be matching big data technology solutions with end users and vice versa to help bridge that gap between research and development and deployment. And finally, we see the hubs as an opportunity to incubate innovations as well as innovators that contribute to the big data ecosystem. With the right mix and growth conditions in our incubation cell and contributions from our diverse network, we're looking forward to what we can build as a team. So as we begin our first round of in-person and virtual events, we're looking to connect everyone on our mailing list and a Slack channel, and to leverage existing formal and informal partnerships and networks that are there today. As of this morning, we have a new website. It used to say in my notes a new domain name, but it's actually now a website. There's some posts beyond Hello World there. It's at westbigdatahub.org, and by the time we're taking Q&A, there will be even more content, I imagine. So definitely check out that space. We're moving towards making that the one-stop shop for information and updates. So thank you in advance for your help spreading the word about our new portal and our new social media presence, so we can increase our reach and broaden access and participation across each state. In addition to ramping up our online communication and engagement, in the next few weeks, we'll be announcing a series of visits to regional areas, aka I will be coming out to you guys in all of those different states, and we'll be identifying and interviewing data science mentors to highlight in our website, as well as planning a spring all-hands meeting for our region. As the other hubs have mentioned, we look forward to assisting big data spoke proposal development by helping to coordinate our region's response to this week's NSF Big Data Spokes solicitation, and by identifying valuable potential partnerships to strengthen our region's proposals. So mark your calendars for December 18th for letting us know if you're interested in putting together a letter of intent for a spoke proposal or planning grant. And please watch your inboxes this week for further details. In the meantime, we look forward to hearing your ideas about how the hub can provide the most value for you. We have a starter list of West Big Data Innovation Hub ambassadors sitting here today, and some of them are already on flights back to Arizona, Colorado, Wyoming, California, Washington State, New Mexico, and others after this meeting. And we hope that you will put on a West Big Data Innovation Hub ambassador hat as we move forward. In addition to signing up for our mailing list by visiting westbigdatahub.org, we invite you to introduce yourself. Just drop us a note to info@westbigdatahub.org. You can connect with us on social media. We have a Twitter handle @WestBigDataHub as of a couple hours ago, and you can also follow the hashtag BigDataHubs. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. We're going to open up for questions. So if there are any questions in the room, we'll try and take a couple of those first, and then we'll switch over to the phone and the WebEx. We have one here.
Can Fen speak up to how this is going to be posted out to the community?
Sorry, so the question is whether I can explain how this will be posted to the community. This event, the video for this event and a lot of this content will be posted to the bdhub.info webpage. This was our main webpage to manage both the previous regional charrettes, so we'll have that information on that webpage. On top of that, for additional information from NSF about this solicitation specifically, will be on that program webpage. So I actually wanted to ask some of the other, the hub's leads that presented today to join me on stage as we take some questions.
Okay, we've got the first one from WebEx. As a spoke applicant, would we be able to partner with any regional hub, or will we be restricted to the hub the hub whose region we're in?
From the NSF perspective, there is no requirement that you go to the quote region of your hub. And however, it's I think as your first order action, you should go to the hub that is within your region. We've left it a little bit more flexible because of the fact that sometimes regions have focus areas, say coastal hazards, that was one mentioned by the South, or specific focus areas that there may be expertise outside of that region. So we're not going to forbid those experts to interact with that hub. But as a first order act, you should look to see if your interests are aligned with the hub in your region. Any comments by any of the hubs?
I'd just also say that we're working together quite well across hubs. We've had many phone calls and meetings. In fact, I want to thank the Southern Hub for loaning me this tie for this event. So thank you, Stan. So we work together very well.
Great. We've got another question from the WebEx. What is the plan for all of the hub steering committees to make sure they're sharing policies and strategies?
We do have a mailing list, and if you'd like to be on it, you should send your email to the contact email that I had listed on the last page of the slide. So we will be emailing out information to that list about policies that we set up. We will present them on the web page so that you can always go there to check what policies we have. The first meeting of our steering committee is November 17th. And just as Ed said, for the Midwest Hub, we're very much at the beginning, and that will be the first time that we'll be looking at what policies we set.
For the South Hub, I would like to add that we are doing the same thing through an hub meeting on December 7th and 8th. So I would request our region members to please try to attend the meeting. And we are going to discuss spoke ideas and proposals, and spontaneously groups can arise and then try to discuss what they would like to do. And we are very open, and we don't have any preconceived plans there. We would like you all to come and then try to sort of help us make the plan. And on the second day, we also plan to have the general hub meeting where we will talk about the governance structure, bylaws, and some of the cross-cutting issues. Stan, in our presentation, already gave you how to join the mailing list and so on. So please participate in those.
And also to build on that, over the last couple of days, all of the different hub leaders have had different powwows and discussed policies and processes. And so one of the simple ways to keep all of this straight is we'll have a shared Google Calendar where you can see all of the different deadlines and milestones and so forth for the various hubs, and be able to participate in multiple if you are able to.
So one other comment to make is that in the South BD Hub's breakout session, we had a pretty extensive discussion on how much value there would be in being able to share best practices across the hub, all four of the hubs. And so we're going to set up a mechanism to do that, and also make sure that those get posted up on the websites. So we really think that as we create these engagement groups, in this case around the spokes initially, that there's going to be a real significant value in finding out how other people are creating different kinds of engagements in groups, how they're interacting with their state government, for example. We just think that there's a lot of value in using this as a platform to do something that's outside of the region as well as internal to the region.
Yeah, we'd like to ask Melinda, do you have any questions on the phone line for us?
Thank you. We do 2 questions from the phone lines. Our first is from Jason Williams. Your line is open, sir.
I think it was kind of answered by that last question or comment about making sure the good ideas between all the different hubs also share freely. So that was my comment.
Great. Anyone else on the phone?
Thank you. Next question from Ted Haberman. Your line is open.
Hi, this is Ted Haberman from the HDF group. Some of the hubs seem to have focus areas that overlap. One that's particularly interesting to me is the sort of the data tools and data sharing which of course involves data and metadata. Is it possible to pull together a spoke which reaches across multiple hubs?
Yeah, so we do ask that each spoke be affiliated for organizational purposes with one lead hub. However, it's possible for the other hubs to write their letters of support, to be somehow collaborators within your spoke. It's for you as a group, as I say, to first order look at the hub in your region. One of the reasons we made it regional was that it would be easy for participants to travel and to really have that face-to-face interaction that you really need to drive real output generating collaborations.
Thank you.
Great. We're going to switch over to the WebEx, and we have, how do you ensure that researchers who are not part of the original grant application are reviewed equally with those who were part of it from the beginning?
So we're very open to proposals that come in for spokes that were not part of the original proposal. The proposal was just a beginning, and at that point in time, we gathered input from people who came to the charrettes and others that spoke up. So really, if you're interested, it's fine to submit a proposal on a new spoke for our hub.
Yeah, I'll say that a similar comment, but also we talked about this yesterday, and what will our process be for deciding which ones our particular hub thinks is ready for a spoke proposal. So we're going to make sure that we don't have conflicts of interest in the reviewing these. So people who are leading particular spokes, for example, might help organize or facilitate groups to work together, but then they won't be part of the decision process that we make.
So though a large number of institutions and organizations were consulted during the proposal writing process, we recognize that the effort hasn't reached everyone. And that's why in the South Hub, we have tried to stay away from figuring out who will be writing a proposal, and we want that to be really community driven. So we request people to kind of put teams together and inform us, and we want to do a facilitating role. We have identified certain priority areas based on the input from the entire region. And those, plus there are also priority areas identified by NSF. We welcome proposals from interested groups of individuals in all of these areas. Plus, if there is an area that we kind of overlooked or didn't come on our radar yet, but a group of people feel that strongly that that's an important issue for the South, we are very open for that as well. Our hub steering committee consists of representatives from academia, industry, and also government and other organizations. It's a large council, and they will be vetting the proposals and trying to put the best ones forward.
All right. I'd like to point out for the West, we gave people the most time, December 18th. And that was really strategic because we wanted to have the maximum amount of time to really reach out. We know that there are entire states who have not yet been involved in this exciting launch that just happened this week. And so we really would love to hear from, a wide net of stakeholders. And also the spokes, we discussed this at length over the workshop. The spokes are one element of our, portfolio of activities. And so even just over the last couple of days, we had, guests coming from the Department of Transportation and other groups that are very excited about the startup of the hubs and could be other sources for collaboration, funding, and other partnerships. So we see this as a way to jumpstart the effort and have something tangible to focus on, but it's just one of many different activities that we're looking forward to.
Our deadline is December 21st.
Oh, you beat by 3 days. Okay.
So, sorry, Meredith. We also thought of December 25th, but somehow thought that's a date to be avoided.
Okay, one more from the WebEx here. Are any data hubs using the sub-state regional groups of local governments, variously known as regional commission, planning and development districts, councils of government? These are statewide, inclusive of metro and non-metro areas.
So we have representatives from cities on our hub, and through those representatives, we will have access to and universities that coordinate with those cities, we will have access to some of the services and connections and data that they provide. We very much want to reach out to some of these state and local organizations, and we will be doing that.
Just same story. We are working quite closely. We have, in fact, formal letters of commitment to work with us from cities and from state organizations as well.
We have some of those partners as well.
So after spending the last couple of years in government, I can definitely attest to the many levels of government. And so when I said we are looking to engage with all levels of government, that's, you know, city, county, state, other local regions, tribal groups, territorial groups. And so if you have any thoughts, please do reach out by email for any particular groups that would be compelling partners, and we'd love to follow up.
And Washington, D.C. is in the South region. So.
Okay, great. Let's take another from the WebEx. So it says, how about open source software and open data sets? On GitHub? Question mark. Yes. I see nodding. And
So this is me being sort of a program officer. Take a look at the solicitation. We have some guidelines and suggestions on software sharing, data sharing for any Spoke proposal. One thing that I want to mention is that while we encourage openness in both data and software sharing, we haven't mandated it. Right? If it's possible, we want to encourage the openness of both data and software sharing. However, we realize that there are some, some data sets that can't be completely open, that have to be controlled for various issues, including personal information, or for just, they could be a valuable asset that wants to be shared amongst a smaller group. So we are open to different schemes where data sharing doesn't have to be completely open for Spoke.
So this is a particularly interesting question, at least to me, because we are involved so significantly in open source software development on a number of different projects. But in our breakout session, we had a pretty interesting discussion about the way to create sanitized, depersonalized, synthetic data sets that we could perhaps share even across the hubs. So in other words, taking highly sensitive data and finding ways to transform it into a form that could be used for various purposes, including training of either people or deep learning algorithms, those types of things. So there's a lot of opportunities here that I think we're only now beginning to explore, but we certainly want to try to make as many of these available to the public as possible.
So I think I speak for all the hubs, and particularly within the regions, the individual centers and projects. We have forged a kind of a partnership through the thing called the National Data Service Consortium. And in fact, there are supercomputing centers, Pittsburgh, Texas, NCSA, San Diego, and Argonne, among others, who've agreed to stand up a common environment for linking together things. So if you have a DIBS project or a DataNet project or an NIH Commons project, and you'd like to find ways to expose services to each other, which we might particularly need across regions or domains for these complex problems, this environment that we're standing up called NDS Labs would allow people to actually connect things and then also develop. We have an open development environment that we're creating. It's not real, so don't all rush at once, but we're going to do the best we can to support this for various pilots that might come up.
Thanks very much. Melinda, do we have anyone queued up on the phone?
There are no questions over the phone.
Okay. So then I think we can close off. Let's give them a round of applause, and let's hope for a grand slam here. Fen?
So I just wanted to close to thank everybody who's attended this public session and attended the in-person session here in DC over the last 2.5 days. I think we have a very exciting program that's just launched, and it has incredible potential for the future. NSF does see this as a long-term strategic investment and something that we hope will grow and be dynamic in the future. So we're very excited to see where this will be heading. For the video of this will be made available available to the bdhubs.info webpage. That is our central webpage for the workshop series that we've held to kick off these hubs. Each hubs themselves have their own webpage, which we will link through to from that central bdhubs.info webpage with specific information from their hubs. So for further information, please go there, and also please check out the NSF solicitation. It's 16510.
Thanks so much. Enjoy your day.